Again, hadn't I been staring at the graveyard this whole time? Unsure of how much time had passed, I glanced around the circle. Everyone had disappeared, Andre and all the Golgotha. Markus was the only person left. He stared at me when I turned towards him, an unreadable expression on his face. Are you okay, Markus? For several long, enduring moments, Markus said nothing. Silence drifted past us, and as I began to wonder if he'd even heard my question. I have never felt better in my life. A slow smirk stretched over his lips. It looked much like the smirk I'd gotten so used to seeing, the one he'd greeted me with that first night. But great balls of fire, I remember now why I stopped partaking in these Maniacs Anonymous meetings. That sensation of sinking into deep, all-consuming darkness, a dream within a dream. Certainly not my idea of an enjoyable evening. Did you see the mirror too? Mirror, yes, I saw a mirror. Not for very long, however. I was soon whisked away to a different place far beyond the darkness. After nudging a broken gravestone with his boot, Markus stepped closer to me. A smile stayed in place on his features, matching the theatrical cadence that had returned to his voice. Instead of being taken somewhere within my own mind, I witnessed something inside you. His last word came in a soft, drawn-out breath. Something deep and dark, a thing that I don't dare give voice to. Yet when I faced it, I realized I was no longer afraid. Indeed, I felt we were already well acquainted, this thing and I. I saw something dark inside you too, Markus. I know you did. His expression didn't betray any shame or alarm. However, let us leave it at that. What you saw already said enough. But the way it ended, that is how it was meant to end. Leave it at that. He repeated his words firmly, but not bitterly. My observation hadn't seemed to bother him, though I could tell he wanted to move on. But has anything changed inside you? Can you feed again? That's difficult for me to say. After the visions I just witnessed, I haven't much of an appetite. But I suppose I'll discover what has changed soon enough. How do you feel, Valkii? Better, since I know you're better. Instead of offering a straight reply, Markus stepped forward. His long arms curled around me, squeezing me so hard against his lanky frame that it started to hurt. Thank you, Valkii. Thank you for accompanying me. It was sort of a strange, awkward hug, but I could sense the emotions overflowing behind it. Even if his face didn't betray much on the surface, Markus was dealing with something inside him, something that he didn't seem to understand himself. Hug him back tighter. When I squeezed against his bony chest, Markus rested a hand on top of my head. I felt him gently stroking my hair, the touch of his fingertips light as a butterfly. Something about the gesture felt unusually affectionate, at least for Markus. I believe the time approaches for us to depart. Already we've spent too long in this place. My skin tingles with 1,000 pinpricks. After stepping back, he glanced around the graveyard, grimacing faintly. Agreed, let's get out of here. Come then. Let us ferry ourselves home before we both become flambéed by the sun. Good idea. Good idea, Markus. We left the cemetery without any eventful encounters, walking side by side. It was almost time for the sun to rise, so Markus and I parted ways on the street. He took a separate cab back to his shop. But even though Markus seemed less grim than before, I wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or worried. Tonight's conclusion was, well, what was the conclusion? If his strange condition wasn't healed, had our visit to the graveyard been pointless? And those things I'd seen inside him, inside me, it was such a bizarre feeling to process. Even by the time I settled into bed, my head was still reeling with the surreal aura of that night, and the last thing I'd seen through Markus's eyes. How poignant. Ooh, are we at this point already? A faint drip echoed from somewhere inside the garage. It filled my ears as I walked along, my thoughts drifting absently. I was on my way back from my last mission. Charisse had sent me to blow up an old storage facility. Some upstart vampire, an Ascari who defected to Randall's side, was using the place to hide weapons. She sent me out alone, so I had, purposefully sabotaged them. Let me have a look at my statties. I feel like these need to be at least halfway for me to be able to do what I want to do at the end. So I feel like I'm kind of fucked on that in that aspect, but we'll see. I planted the explosive inside but sabotaged them carefully. That way, if Cherise sent another agent to see why the facility hadn't exploded, I could pretend someone tampered with it after I left. Now I was on my way back to the hotel, taking a shortcut through the parking garage. With any luck, I'd arrive with time to spare and have the rest of the night to myself. A few weeks had passed since that night at the graveyard with Marcus. I had had a lot more free time recently as Cherise was occupied. The murders suddenly picked up again. For some reason, Lazarus was slaughtering vampires more and more, hunting them with renewed vengeance, and we kept getting reports of half-eaten bodies in the sewers. So when I wasn't watching Cherise tear out her hair in frustration, I kept my eyes open for Marcus, who I hadn't seen since our last meeting. He hadn't contacted me either. No visits, no notes, not even a phone call. It was like he'd vanished. Apparently, nobody else had seen him either. Blood and Roses was locked up, the sign always reading closed. And yet somehow I had the distinct feeling Marcus was still around. I didn't know what he was waiting for, but when he was finally ready, I knew he'd appear again. The garage was unnervingly quiet. All I could hear was the sound of my own footsteps and the droning hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I never figured out who kept these lights on, or if some electrical company had just never bothered to shut them off. Somewhere far above me, thunder rumbled outside, announcing a storm that might have already arrived. Just another calm night as a vampire in Hollywood. As I approached the staircase that would lead me outside, something made me freeze. I felt a presence nearby. It was approaching me from the staircase and from above. Find somewhere to hide. It doesn't work, but whatever. My eyes started around, searching for any possible hiding spot. The only place I could go was behind the cars, but they wouldn't hide my scent from any vampire. A moment later, a different rumble started to echo from above, the sound of a car engine. This wasn't a chance encounter or a friendly visit. I'm just gonna shift in my seat while being muted. Okay, I was being ambushed. Oh no. Over there! Get her! She's probably trying to run away, just like I said she would. What, am I, a coward to you? I mean, if you're grouping up on me, of course I'd run away anyway. The stairway door flew open, letting out a group that rushed towards me. Almost simultaneously, a large black car pulled around the corner, angling itself to block my path. Within seconds, I found myself being surrounded. But almost all of the presences I felt weren't vampires. They were humans. Wait, we want to talk to her first. Two figures pushed through the group, swaggering towards me. Something about the woman seemed strangely familiar. No, she was definitely familiar. I'd seen her in the hotel lobby, angrily shouting at the desk clerk. She must have been an Iskari. I recognized the man, too, from Marcus's shop, one of the Mavar who'd attacked him. Oh, this is gonna be good. Yeah, it'll be fucking great. Can't wait to wipe that dumbass smile off your face. The Mavar snarled eagerly at me, almost salivating like a mad dog. "We're not going to kill you, though." Flashing me a delighted smirk, the Iskari motioned to the group surrounding me. "These guys, they're hunters, and we made a deal with them to hand you over. They're really interested in all the juicy vampire secrets you know about, and they're gonna have a great time dragging them out of you." "Why are you targeting me?" "Are you joking?" She's definitely joking. God, I hope so. She let out a sharp laugh, rolling her eyes in disgust. "This chick and I, normally we hate each other's guts, but we fucking hate your guts even more. Even if she doesn't hate you for the right reasons." The two exchanged glances, returning their hateful stares to me a moment later. "You act like you're working with Cherise, don't you? But you just treat your job like it's whatever. You don't appreciate it. Getting to work with her is a privilege. Some of us tried for years to get her attention." "I'm working with what I've been given. How is that my fault? Because she just gave it to you, some regular little Golgotha who doesn't deserve anything." "It's not about who deserves it. If you worked hard, you'd get my spot." That's just... Ha ha ha. Listen, who cares? She's gonna be dead by the end of the night, because karma's a bitch. What did I ever do to you, bro? As if on cue, the hunters impatiently shifted around me, muttering to themselves. From what it sounded like, they were gonna force me along in their car nearby. Alright, let's get this over with. I want to hear less bullshit coming out from her mouth, more screaming. Wait, maybe... The Iskari bit her lower lip, glancing hesitantly towards her partner. "Maybe we should... Huh? What, you get cold feet or something? Well, if you're gonna pussy out, then I'll... The next moment, right as I blinked... Suddenly, the Mavar's head was gone. The only thing left was an empty, bleeding stump. A circular saw blade lay on the ground just past his body next to his severed head. Ah! The girl shrieked, stumbling back from the Mavar's corpse. A second huge blade whizzed past, slicing one of the hunter's arms in half. Where is it coming from? I don't... Shit, no, please! Within seconds, chaos and panicked shrieks filled the garage. Everywhere I looked, blood splattered the floor, limbs and chunks of flesh falling in red pools. All the hunters were wildly firing their guns, trying to hit the unseen attacker. One of them turned to run, racing for the exit, until a saw blade gored through his back, toppling him to the ground. This is pointless, but I always do it anyway. I darted over to one of the humans on the ground, starting to pull him towards safety, but from his empty eyes and the huge blade in his chest, I quickly realized he was dead. All of the others looked the same, unmoving, decapitated, or brutally pierced in the heart. The bloodbath didn't take much longer to finish. Before long, all the hunters were dead, their bodies littering the concrete. The only vampire who'd escaped was the Iskari. She dashed away as fast as her legs could take her, disappearing around the corner and not looking back. As her footsteps faded away, I was left alone again, surrounded by a sea of mangled corpses. But in the eerie, too peaceful silence that followed, I heard the stairway door open and close. This literally never works. The sound that had to be the mysterious attacker leaving. Knowing this would be my only chance to see them, I sprinted for the stairs, slamming the door open. There wasn't any normal vampiric scent for me to follow. It was something strange, alien. Still, I heard footsteps climbing above me, so I hurried desperately after them. When I reached the surface, I didn't see anyone at first, until I glanced down the alley just in time to glimpse a tall, dark-haired figure stalking into the street. I followed him as quickly as I could, rushing out of the alley. Out on the main road, a huge crowd was gathered for some kind of celebrity event. The man must have disappeared into the bustling throng of people, because I couldn't see him anywhere. In that crowd, there was no way I'd be finding him anytime soon. It never happens. But I feel like the dark hair, I don't think it's Lazarus, but it could be my sire. He had dark hair. Could be. His presence was just so hard to pin down, like it belonged to a ghost or something else I couldn't even comprehend. Disappointed, I ended up hailing a cab, riding back to the hotel with even more questions in my mind. Some flecks of blood, both the hunters and the vampires from the smell of it, had landed on my face and clothes. The taxi driver gave me a funny look, but he didn't seem as freaked out as he probably should have been. Maybe it wasn't his first time seeing a passenger like me. By the time I reached the hotel, I felt a little more composed. It was difficult to process what had happened, both for me and the hotel clerk who stared at me open-mouthed as I arrived. Miss Locke would like to speak with you on the phone. Boy, do I ever have a story for her. After quickly dialing up a number, the clerk handed me the receiver. On the second ring, a voice picked up. Valkii, is that you? What on earth happened? You should have been back some time ago. I heard a touch of worry in her voice. I was attacked on my way back. By whom, exactly? Oh, for heavens. Go on, just tell me everything. At Sharice's frustrated command, I explained what happened in the parking garage. She listened silently, and I could almost hear the deep crease knitting on her brow. When I finally finished, she let out a long sigh. The following clink, probably Sharice taking off her glasses. You seem to have this remarkable talent for attracting the worst sort of attention. If one of your attackers escaped, I have no doubt the news will spread like wildfire, so be prepared for any rumors drifting about. And the individual who rescued you is nearly just as worrying. Have you any idea who that is? I'm not sure, but they seemed incredibly strong. It certainly sounds that way. Slaughtering a group of hunters is no easy task, even for powerful vampires. She exhaled another sigh, sounding as resigned as she did confused. Well, regardless of your mystery savior, you'll have to be on high alert from now on, Valkii. I doubt most of LA's vampires feel so passionately about you, but after tonight, we can't ignore the possibility. I don't know what I did to get them so worked up. Take my word for it, Valkii, people don't require much provocation to get worked up. Even if you accidentally shake their views of the world, they'll take it as a grave personal offense, as if you threatened their very existence. Consider curbing your behavior, assuming you don't want to deal with more attacks every night. After clearing her throat pointedly, Sharice paused for a moment. I'm out of the city right now on business, but I'll be back at the hotel tomorrow. We'll discuss things further then. Do try to stay alive until I've returned. I will, and you do the same. Indeed, our times haven't come yet, Valkii. What's my stats like? Come on. Oh, the Ascari is... this one's letting me down. It could be enough, but I don't think it is. With that, she abruptly hung up. I handed the phone back to the anxious-looking clerk, who offered me a temporary change of clothes again. By the time I'd gotten the blood off my face and hair, there were still a few hours until sunrise. I had time to venture out into the city again if I felt brave enough. Alright, I want to go... Where is it? Okay, here. I want to go... I can't just straight up go to the hotel for some reason, so I'm going to go to the graveyard. I decided to pay Andre a visit and made my way up to his unique choice of resting place. It's not really why I wanted to go here, I don't think. Oh no, it is. When I reached the graveyard, I saw Andre in plain sight, a solitary figure in the dark. But instead of standing near the mausoleum, he was kneeling before a gravestone, one gloved hand resting lightly on top of it. Andre stayed motionless for a long while, even when I stopped a few feet away. Eventually, he rose upward with a reserved elegance, turning his focus towards my face. Greetings, Valkii. You have chosen a suitable time to visit, for our apotheosis draws quite near indeed. Perhaps you may sense it yourself. You mean the war's about to reach its breaking point? Yes, it will not require much longer. Now let us discuss whatever questions preoccupy you, young Golgotha. I've asked a lot about things. I'm not really interested in talking about this stuff. Someone named Morgan wants to meet you. I recall such an individual sending a message to me. I was unsure of her potential, however. Are you vouching for the usefulness of such a meeting, Valkii? She seems very insightful. I think it's definitely worth meeting her. I see, then I will consider such a meeting in the near future. He offered the faintest incline of his head. Not something that happened. The dream I saw with Marcus. I know nothing of what you saw, Valkii. I was merely supervising the proceedings. I will note, however, that the two of you were leaning against each other for an extended period until Marcus abruptly jerked away. The rest of us left while you were returning to the surface, so I cannot speak to any other parts of your experience. That's all for now. And I hope my answers have left you sated, Valkii. Farewell. I just went there to fulfill my promise to Morgan. I don't know why that's important, but yeah. Leaving Andre's side, I returned to the towering graveyard gates. Can I go to 3 places tonight? Because if I can, what's the point in going to Blood and Roses? He's not going to be there. If he's missing, he's not going to be there. Tonight, the hotel was bustling with activity. Ascari lined the sofas and clustered around the lobby, having important-sounding discussions among themselves. I noticed a few glances thrown my way as I stepped past the desk, and some lingering, curious stares that followed me around. Go talk to them. Maybe there was somewhere else I could have gone. Maybe I could probably have gone to the beach and done something, but it's not on this list, so I don't know. Drifting among the elegant crowd of vampires, I wandered from group to group, listening to and occasionally joining conversations. Almost all of the Ascari recognized me or knew my name when I introduced myself. Apparently my reputation was starting to precede me. Most of them were warm, or at least acted polite when I stepped up to them, and the occasional sharp glares I got seemed to be from the minority. As I mingled with the other vampires, I decided to discuss ambitions to leave. Sure, why not? Without making any traitorous intentions obvious, I subtly implied to the Ascari that a new leader might be healthy for the city's coven. The fact that I was interested in uniting all 3 houses was just a fortunate coincidence. Or was it? I let the groups decide for that themselves, but I could tell from their keen gazes that they'd picked up on my hints, for better or worse. To my surprise, quite a few Ascari seemed intrigued by the prospect. I fielded some questions about my own style of leadership in a dance of implications and nonchalance, carefully avoiding any answers that'd get me in trouble with Charisse. It was hard to say for sure, but I had the feeling that most of the Ascari, especially the younger ones, would be receptive to a more moderate leader. Okay. Let me have a look. Yeah, I mean, I could probably do all of them with this rep. But I'm not sure about how the last one works. Eventually, after circling around the various groups for a while, I figured I'd probably spend enough time here for tonight. By the time I stepped away from the gathering, people were already trickling out, heading up to their rooms or wandering back into the streets. Okay, so I can. Let's just go. He's not going to be there. I should have gone to the beach house, shouldn't I? Talk to Randall if he would have been there. Oh well. It seemed like Marcus wasn't. Oh, I can. Okay. I'm not going to go see Lazarus. This is going to see Lazarus, but he just tells you his story. I'm not very interested in that right now. Let's go to the beach house and talk to Randall if he's there. I had my driver take me to Santa Monica, deciding to stop by Randall's place. Okay, I need to bring up my OBS. A large crowd was gathered inside, filling the air with the chattering of excited voices. Everywhere I looked, vampires were clustered tightly together like a hive of buzzing bees. But amidst the swarm of Mavar, I saw a strangely solitary figure by the sliding door. Randall. Yeah, he's the only one you can talk to. Okay. Let's do it. I stepped over to the door where the Mavar were giving Randall an unusually wide berth. Maybe he'd asked to be alone for a little while. When I got close, he didn't seem to notice me at first, until finally his head jerked up. Valkii. I heard about what happened, and Jesus Christ. He exhaled a long breath through his teeth, clenching his jaw. I'm sure you know this already, but I'd never let any of my guys attack you like that. It must have been some dumb fuck who thinks you're the one to blame for our problems. Are you doing okay? Never felt better in my life. It takes more than that to shake me up. Man, you really are a tough girl. I guess it's that same spark that made Charisse so intent on keeping you around from the first night. Randall sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. Well, if you're alright, then that's a big weight off my shoulders. If you want, we could talk about something else, get your mind off things. I get it if you're not up for it, though. I'm not interested in hearing about any of this. Anything new, I will click on. Marcus's speech back at the party. Yeah, I still can't believe he fucking did that. The shit he said, it's just, I don't know, it hurt. In a way, I understand what he was going for, but that wasn't the time or the place for a rant. It's like he did it on purpose just to divide people. And that's all for now. Alright, I'm real glad you came to see me, Valkii. He reached out to squeeze my shoulder, gazing at me intently. Be careful out there because, well, until the war's over, anything could fucking happen. As we parted ways, I felt Randall's gaze still on my back, following me closely. That didn't do anything for my stats, did it? If anything, I feel like the Mavar hate me more now. Oh, but I can never tell if there's a subtle difference. Alright, that's all for tonight. Slipping out of the beach house, I made my way back. Oh no, it's not. That's so fucking weird. I don't know where to go. I'm just gonna go back to my room. As I returned to my room, I still felt slightly unnerved from my earlier brush with death. The sight of all those bodies stayed fresh in my mind. What if our places had been reversed and my corpse was lying there right now while they walked free? If not for my mysterious savior, that situation might have come true. Click. It's so good. Every time. The thought didn't give me any comfort as I huddled in for another dreamless rest. Where Marcus though? Where Marcus at? Another free night. I'd woken up peacefully for once and without any mission or urgent request waiting for me. It seemed too good to be true, almost. I dressed myself and decided to head outside, taking the opportunity to prowl around Hollywood a little more. But just as I reached for the door... Ring ring! The phone began to wail at me. I hadn't been expecting a call, so my curiosity made me hurry over to answer it. Please, no. Just hello. Hello, Valkii. It's so nice to hear you again. A gentle, melodic voice murmured through the receiver. I knew I should have... Oh. Leave me alone. Stop haunting me. Hello, Heath. How are you doing? I'm fine, thank you, but maybe a little lonely. I'm outside the abattoir right now, you see. It's completely packed. There's a big party going on, and I thought you might want to come and see the action. He hesitated for a moment, then added more shyly, and maybe keep me company if that's not too much to ask. Sure, I'll come out for a bit. Fantastic, I can't wait to see you again. He let out a warm laugh, traces of excitement leaking into his voice. You won't regret coming out tonight, I promise. As if by fate, a housekeeper knocked at my door right after I hung up, shooing me out into the hall. I'm sure my room doesn't need that much tending to. I left the hotel and grabbed a taxi, speeding off into the LA night. A big party, Heath had said. I wondered who was there. The club was a designated neutral ground, so in theory, anyone could show up. But with tensions as high as they were, could the evening really end without a fight? I don't know, this is new. I didn't expect Heath to call me there. Oh no, I'm about to see him. Steal your heart. Okay. The cab dropped me off by the abattoir, and I wandered inside, curious. The moment I stepped past the bouncers, I realized Heath hadn't been lying. Every inch of the dance floor was swarming with bodies, slamming and grinding to the industrial metal that blasted through the club. Wherever I looked, sharp fangs glinted back at me, mingled with the grins of ignorant humans in the darkness around them. Valkii. No. Someone lightly squeezed my arm, trying to get my attention. Hello. I turned to see Heath right behind me, his pale face reflecting the lights. I'm so happy you decided to come. I thought you might leave me hanging. I'm sure you've got a lot of important things to do. I want to say this one, but I'm not going to because... I try to never leave people hanging if I can help it. No? I'll hold you to that in the future then. Why don't we wander over to the bar? I'll get you a drink before someone else recognizes you and tries to chat you up. Thanks, I'd love one. My pleasure. We weaved through the crowd together, past the throngs of entwined vampires and humans. But as we approached the bar, I noticed a group standing not far off, a group with some faces I recognized. At least here we can... Hey Valkii, that you? A different voice called my name. Oh, hey Randall. God, these two are polar opposites. I fucking hate this, I fucking hate this, I fucking hate this. Heath's eyes met Randall's, and a crushing tension suddenly filled the air. You guys, together? Didn't see that one coming. When Randall muttered a few disparaging words, Heath turned his head away. If me being here bothers you so much, I'll leave. But you shouldn't bring Valkii into this. Who said I'm bringing her into anything? I just don't like the idea of you sinking your claws into her and making her feel sorry for you. Heath never sank his claws into me, Randall. Yeah, that's what you say, but... I mean, he did. But we're not talking about that right now. Randall, please, every time I see you two together, I always wonder which one will outlast the other. Marcus? A third voice rang out over the others. Almost instantly, everyone in the group went silent. There stood Marcus at my flank, giving the other two a detached smirk. It seemed like no one had noticed his approach, even the vampires facing me. And yet, I find it so terribly amusing. That when you stand side by side, you seem so very similar in the end. Yeah, I did constantly get the feeling that Randall was like beefing himself up constantly, and every time he saw Heath, it was like he saw everything he didn't want to be. But that, you know, you can't help but be sometimes. I don't know. They both visibly flinched, and like vice versa, Heath. He doesn't have as much animosity because he's not entirely capable of it. But like, he also sees maybe how he wishes he could be more like. You know, it's, again, I feel like it's the reflection thing again, you know. Randall expects Heath to be more strong, and the fact that he's not disgusts him. It's just how you want to view other people. The atmosphere felt almost unbearably tense, like Marcus had crossed into forbidden territory. You're right, something about them is very familiar. The fuck's your problem, Marcus? Clenching his teeth together, Randall growled loudly, throwing Marcus an accusing glare. You must be pretty fucking blind if you're comparing me to that piece of shit. Why do you get so angry when you look at him, Randall? It shouldn't be your business. He's not bothering you, so why do you get so mad when you look at him? We're nothing alike. Heath's voice was unusually cool, betraying a hint of bitterness. I don't know why you'd even say that unless you're trying to rile us up. Rile you up? Why, that's nonsense. When have I ever done such a thing? The grin on Marcus's face slowly grew wider, as if he were feeding on Heath and Randall's discomfort. Neither of you would exist as you are without the other. You're merely the same desires under different names. Of course, I wouldn't exist as I am without both of you either. But I can acknowledge it. Nobody seemed to know how to respond. Both Heath and Randall were equally speechless, with a strange emotion mirrored in their eyes. Even with the pounding music and voices all around us, the silence felt deafening. I mean, I guess in this instance, the reflection would be, you know, Randall sees himself in Heath and everything he doesn't want to be, and, you know, what I mentioned earlier. You really lost it, didn't you? Randall stared at Marcus with a conflicted, unhappy frown. Much to the contrary, Randall. I have found it. Marcus reached down for my hand, threading his fingers with mine. But your factual errors aside, I didn't come here just to admire yin and yang. Indeed, I came for Valkii, and I'll be taking her for a time, I'm afraid. Despite his casual words, I sensed a hint of urgency in Marcus's voice. Valkii? Heath gave me a pitying look, like he felt sorry that I had to deal with Marcus. I mean, I don't know what to say, but I'm gonna... If it doesn't turn out favourable, I will go back. But Marcus, what about Heath? He invited me. It's alright, Valkii. I'll be over here if you need me. Come, we've wasted enough precious time already. He was nice. I'm gonna leave it. Leaving behind the mutters and curious stares that followed us, Marcus steered me away from the bar. I could see an obvious satisfaction on his face. It was probably good we'd left when we did. That look would have riled up Randall and Heath even more. I apologize if my dramatic interruption caught you off guard. He murmured in my ear over the music, flashing me an elusive grin as we walked. But I wished to speak with you privately without either of them following us along. They're still arguing, so it must have worked. Why, naturally, nobody likes to swallow the truth. Wait, is that him? Is that Marcus? Hey, can I have your autograph, man? A vampire suddenly scurried in front of our path, handing Marcus a marker and a piece of paper. After a slight pause, Marcus scribbled down a signature or something resembling one. Thanks, man. Oh, hey. Is it really true that you and Randall went to high school together? Where on earth did you hear that? We weren't even alive at the same time, so I'm afraid your theory is impossible. He slipped past the vampire, shaking his head in bafflement. But we'd only gone a few steps when someone else brushed past. What are you doing here? How can you show your face in public after killing Jackie? She shouted accusingly at him, her fangs flashing with each word. What? Instead of replying, Marcus grasped my shoulder and pulled me through the crowd. Where are they getting these rumors from? After that night at the beach, my reputation is becoming increasingly contested. Some of my new enemies also claim I regularly drown puppies, skinny dip in virgin blood with Andre, and once even bit the head off of a rat. Thankfully, only one of those things is true. Wait, is that Marcus with Valkii? They're a couple, since when? You didn't know, he sired Valkii so they could be together forever. Shut the fuck up. Marcus sighed gently, looking almost as amused as he did annoyed. Wow, I didn't know you were so romantic, Marcus. Nor did I, Valkii, nor did I. Quickly, let us hurry towards the bathrooms. The only individuals near there are too busy ingesting Class 1 substances to notice our sober selves. Alright, I think I'll go through one more. And then that'll be it. So I will see you in the next video.